Welcome to This Explainer, the illusion of impossible. We're told throughout our entire lives that certain things just simply cannot be done. Boundaries get set for us by society, by teachers, by science, and by all the so-called experts. But based on 12 solid years of studying human potential and extraordinary achievements, I'm here to tell you that the word impossible actually doesn't exist. It isn't some hard fact of the universe. It's really just a hypothesis. And today, we're going to look at the exact moments when that hypothesis was completely shattered. Okay, let's dive into this. When someone tells you that your goal, your dream, or your vision is impossible, they aren't stating a physical law. They're just offering a hypothesis based on their own kind of limited perspective. Throughout history, the absolute greatest breakthroughs have happened specifically because individuals chose to look at the accepted boundaries of their time and completely reject them. We're going to explore how ordinary people shattered societal limitations simply by refusing to accept the hypothesis of impossible. All right, Section 1, when experts are wrong, defying the limits. We all tend to blindly trust authority figures, right? Well, let's take a look at the historical record. Picture this, it's 1955, and Dr. Lee DeForest, a highly respected and truly great scientist of his time, issues a very firm, authoritative statement. He declared absolutely and without a shadow of a doubt that a man can never reach on the moon. He even went a step further, stating confidently that Earth is the maximum limit of science. It was deemed entirely, completely impossible for a human being to ever cross the boundary of the Earth's globe. The expert had spoken, the book was supposedly closed. But nobody actually bothered to tell the people who were doing the work. Just 14 years later, in 1969, a human being stepped right onto the surface of the moon. They didn't listen to the experts. They proved the greatest scientific minds completely wrong. And because they totally ignored the hypothesis of impossible, space journeys have advanced to the point where, today, envisioning a trip to space feels almost as possible as booking a flight to Bangkok. And this brilliantly illustrates our next historical misstep. Consider Lord Kelvin, another towering scientific intellect. He confidently proclaimed that just as birds fly because of their specific biology, it is entirely impossible to fly a machine which is heavier than air. The absolute scientific consensus back then was that gravity would fundamentally guarantee that heavy flying machines would just fall straight to the ground. Enter the Wright brothers. Listen, they didn't have the backing of elite scientific institutions. They were literally bicycle mechanics. They completely ignored the experts who told them the principles of air were stacked against them. Instead, they spent 16 grueling years inventing, using basic cycle spare parts to build their machine. And in doing so, they effectively slapped down the critics and achieved the impossible. They essentially turned humans into birds. Moving on to Section 2, defying physical limitations. Physical laws. So we've seen mechanical flight conquer the impossible. But what happens when the absolute laws of science and physics are applied to living beings? Do the rules still hold up? Well, according to strict scientific principles of aerodynamics, a wasp should never be able to fly. Its wings are simply way too light and too small to carry its heavy body. The physics literally say it is impossible. But here's the brilliant thing. The wasp flies anyway. Why? Because a wasp has never been to school. It was never taught that its flight was impossible, so it just flies. It defies physical limitations simply by not knowing they even exist. Now, let's bring that back to human biology. Imagine a massive crossroads of belief in the life of a young girl named Wilma Rudolph. Wilma suffered from polio. On the left side of this crossroads, we have the medical expert. The doctor gave her a terminal verdict. You will never walk again. On the right side, we have her mother, who offered an absolute, unwavering belief. You will walk. As a child, Wilma had a choice. Whose reality was she going to accept, the scientific expert or her mother? She chose to believe her mother rather than the doctor. So the crucial point is, the girl who was medically guaranteed to never walk again didn't just walk, she ran. And she went on to win 3 Olympic gold medals on the world stage. She looked at the doctor's hypothesis of impossible and completely shattered it with her mother's belief. Which brings us to Section 3, the power of belief. Rewriting reality. This is really the emotional core of our explainer today. We're about to look at one of the most incredible examples in history of how a single person's unwavering belief can literally rewrite the entire reality and trajectory of a child's life. Let's play a quick game. Who was the feeble-minded child? Imagine an 8-year-old boy. He struggles in school. The administration thinks he's completely backwards. One day, he's sent home with a sealed letter from his principal to give to his mother, practically labeling him as mentally retarded. Who do you think this struggling 8-year-old boy grew up to be? No way, right? It was Albert Einstein. One of the greatest scientific minds to ever exist on this planet was assumed to be feeble-minded in his childhood. At 8 years old, little Albert walked into his house and handed that deeply consequential letter to his mother, just waiting to hear what the school had said about him. His mother opened the letter. As she read it, tears filled her eyes. But she looked down at her son and she read the letter out loud. She said, "The principal wrote that your child is a genius. He has great power. Our school, our faculty, our teachers are not capable of giving good education to your child. We are not capable to teach him. So it's better for you to take care of your son and educate him at home." She told him from that day forward she would be his teacher. It was a beautiful lie. And young Albert was happy and deeply, deeply motivated. Let's move to section 4 and see how this builds. Rewriting your own story. Creating wonders. His mother eventually passed away, but her belief had already done its work. Albert Einstein grew up to become a wildly successful, legendary scientist.
Years later, as this highly successful scientist, Einstein was shifting his home. While packing, he opened an old drawer and found a dusty, folded white paper. He brushed the dust off and opened it up. It was the original letter from his principal, the exact same letter he had handed to his mother all those decades ago. He started reading the letter very desperately, and as he read the harsh reality on the page, he began to cry. The principal had actually written, "Your child is feeble-minded. He is not capable of our school. Don't send him to our school and teach him by your own." This was the cold, harsh, supposed fact of who he was. Now, what's really interesting here is what his mother did next. She intentionally read it wrong. She looked at a society that told her son he was impossible to teach, and she totally rejected it. She instilled the absolute belief in him that he had power, that he was a genius, and that he could do wonders. She rewrote his story before the world ever had a chance to ruin it.
And that brings us to our conclusion. Throughout this explainer, we've seen that the limits placed on us are so often just illusions. Never blindly believe anyone who says your goals defy the odds. The next time someone looks at you, looks at your dreams, and tells you it is impossible, what are you going to do? Will you accept their hypothesis and give up? Or will you look them right in the eye, use your success to slap down their reality and say, "What you say we cannot do, we will do"? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay focused, stay curious, and I'll see you next time.